Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing. This week, the Chief Secretary addressed the media.
I want to start on a very somber note. And on behalf of the residents of Tobago and all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, I want to express sincerest condolences to the families and friends of Mr. and Mrs. Richard Wheeler, who was so brutally murdered at their residence within the last 24 hours. All of us in Tobago must abhor senseless and vicious acts like that. And we have a responsibility to ensure that we do all in our power to guarantee that this is not something that is going to be repeated in Tobago. In that context, I would have spoken this morning with the Assistant Commissioner of Police, who has indicated to me that ACP Vincel Edwards, who is a Tobago-born officer now in charge of homicide, he and a team have come from Trinidad and are working in collaboration with the Tobago police officers to ensure that they bring a speedy conclusion to the investigations. The latest reports are that they have some promising leads, some encouraging leads, and I am hopeful that they'll be able to bring the perpetrator to justice in the shortest possible time. That, of course, will bring little relief to the families and friends of the victims. But I think that all of us have a stake in ensuring that this perpetrator is brought to justice. Quite interestingly, and there's no real correlation, ACP Moore informed me that the tourism-oriented policing initiative, which the Assembly has been advocating for many years, should be launched next month. In fact, he indicated to me that a training program will be conducted between Monday and Wednesday of next week. And somewhere in around 20 officers, including members of the bicycle patrol, they will be involved in that training. And then the program will be launched next month. I, of course, recognize that this initiative will go some way in treating with the whole idea of understanding and recognizing the unique circumstances in Tobago, recognizing and understanding the impact of incidents like this on Tobago's marketability, and therefore the responsibility that we have to do all that is possible and all that is necessary to make Tobago safe, serene, and attractive. In that context, I also want to draw to or remind all of us that in his budget presentation, the Minister of Finance would have spoken to the question of local policing, and this is something that is going to impact positively on what we're doing in Tobago. I think you're all aware that the Tobago Police Bill would have been brought to the Parliament, not the Parliament, to the Cabinet some years ago. And we're hoping that the Tobago Police Service, if you want to put it like that, will be introduced as a matter of urgency. Because I've always made it very clear that in the Tobago context, the role of community policing is even more relevant than maybe any other part of the country. And we have to have a situation, as the ACP indicated, where you don't only have more officers, but you have an environment in which there is a closer correlation or collaboration, I should say, between the police and the people. And therefore I want to reiterate the sentiments expressed by the inspector in charge of the process. I think it was Inspector Nelson, who urged Tobagonians to come forward and give information and to cooperate with the police service in bringing this thing to completion. But he also cautioned us in Tobago, and again I want to repeat his sentiments. He also cautioned us in Tobago that we have a responsibility, whether as resident or visitor, we have a responsibility to ensure that we do all that is necessary to give ourselves, a good chance of not falling prey to these mindless creatures or mindless individuals who perpetuate such acts. So once again, my sincerest condolences to the families and the friends of the deceased, and I really hope, and in fact I expect, that this matter will be that the perpetrators will be brought to justice. Just a reminder that the Crime Stoppers would have given a reward of $100,000 for any information leading to the investigation being successfully completed, and of course some conviction. This is an incentive, but I think as Tobagonians, persons resident in Tobago, we don't have to need an incentive to do the right thing, so that anybody who has information has a responsibility to ensure that that information is brought to the attention of the police. Individuals like these don't deserve our sympathy, don't deserve our empathy, don't deserve our cooperation, and we have a responsibility to offer to ourselves and our own protection to make sure that we give the police any information which we consider relevant. I prefer the police to tell me that they're getting too much information rather than that somebody is out there with information that is relevant and is either too scared or too indifferent to make their information available to the police. As you might be aware, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley, is going to be visiting Tobago for the first time since he assumed office. From our perspective, the official part of his visit will encompass 2 days. On Friday at 9 in the morning, he's scheduled to be at the Mason Hall Government Primary School, which is, of course, where he would have attended. He attended the Mason Hall Primary School, and then to another alma mater, the Bishop's High School, at 11 in the morning. At 2 that afternoon, he, in his capacity as Prime Minister, and I, in my capacity as Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, we scheduled to meet at the Magdalena from 2 in the afternoon. And then on Monday, there will be a special sitting of the House at 10 in the morning, and at 6:30 that evening, there will be a reception hosted by the Tobago House of Assembly, and that reception is carded for the Penthouse in the Victor E. Bruce building. So that in a nutshell is what the itinerary is like. I am hoping that the meeting between us would be a prelude to, a number of other meetings, but just in preparation for this meeting, I would have sent a correspondence to him, and some of the issues that we will be discussing are included in that, or I hope to discuss with them, are included in that correspondence, where we're hoping to treat with an improvement in the relationship between the central government and the Tobago House of Assembly, some operational activities that require some executive direction. I want to discuss, things like representation on state boards, the performance of 7 scheduled services in Tobago, processes for the improved collaboration between the Chief Secretary and the Prime Minister, and between secretaries and ministers. I'd also want us to deal, obviously, with the question of legislative arrangements and the process, the self-government process, where we are and how we intend to go forward, and what is the response of this cabinet to the proposals put forward to the previous cabinet. The whole question of the parliamentary allocation and how that is appropriations, and how we're dealing with that. Whether we're going to be, I don't think the lower level, I think in the Minister of Finance's allocation this year, it wasn't inextricably linked to the lower limit of the Dispute Resolution Commission. We want to go a little further, not only in respect of the quantum, but the factors that determine the allocation. We want to review the line item approach. All of these are issues. We don't expect a resolution at the meeting, but there are issues that I would want to raise with the Prime Minister so that he can be sensitive to those factors that are important to us. The Assembly's right to borrow, the access to loans and grants, and then, of course, this was long before today's incident, island and national security, review of the Tobago Bill, review of the role and functioning of the military units, and from an infrastructural perspective, the construction of police stations in Windward and Leeward, Tobago, fire service headquarters, correctional institute. These are, of course, projects that have been lagging for some time, and we want to see that something done urgently. And of course, the question of inter-island transportation is an issue that I am expecting we'll be able to discuss. The Minister of Finance again did speak to that. Inland transportation, very alarming state of affairs with respect to public transport, and of course social infrastructure, education. We've already got some additional funding, so we're going to start the Scarborough RC Primary School. The housing situation, which is extremely dire, and the reforestation program. So what I'm saying is that he has this document, and I'm hoping that we'll be able, not necessarily, as I said, to bring conclusion to them, but that we'll be able to sensitize each other. I will be able to sensitize him about the issues which we consider critical, and he will also be able to sensitize me about his government's position on these critical issues. One of the reasons why, obviously, I would have asked you all to come a little earlier is because, as you know, today we celebrate World Food Day. In discussion with the Secretary, he indicated that the response this year has been quite encouraging. In fact, he indicated that they could not cater for all the requests for booths and so on. But as far as I'm concerned, World Food Day is only a catalyst for achieving our food security. So that I will be hoping that, the information that would be put out there by the Secretary and his team indicates that we are further along the road to food security than we were a year ago. Because this is something that we are obviously focusing on as we attempt to diversify. That's diversify in my book. It's not just about finding new initiatives and new sectors to develop. Diversification is also doing the traditional things a little better, a little more effectively to make sure they have a greater impact. So I'll be viewing with great interest not just what transpires at the Dwight York car park today, but also attempting to ensure that I get the assurance that we are well on the way towards achieving food security. Tomorrow in the House we debate a very interesting motion. It seems simple, replacing Assembly Day with Tobago Day. And we believe that at this point in time, we all recognize the importance of the Assembly to the development of Tobago, but in the final analysis, it is the development of Tobago and Tobagonians which is critical. And in those circumstances, we felt that it was not just symbolic, but it was necessary that we focus the attention of Tobagonians at this point in time on the importance of the island and the preservation of what is important on the island, the enhancement of what nature has given to us, and of course the need for us to develop the space, but also to develop ourselves. And during that exercise, we are expecting that the various contributors would be motivating, informing, and sensitizing Tobagonians about their responsibilities. Because at this particular juncture in the historical development of Tobago, we have got to bear in mind that even if we were to achieve the changes in the powers and the authority of the Assembly as an institution, if we as Tobagonians do not take up our responsibility, then Tobago would not necessarily change as significantly as we would like it to. And therefore, this is not just about Tobago Day as far as I'm concerned. It is about Tobagonians Day and us understanding the link between the Assembly, the island, and the people. And just two other things. At the end of this month, we are again going to host the Peace Awards ceremony. I consider this to be quite significant because what we are doing is that we are, in effect, branding Tobago as a suitable place to have the Peace Awards function. And the idea is that we are going to be paying tribute, and I want to pay tribute not only to the awardees, but I want to pay tribute to Justice Kukaram and the members of the mediation board who have been the catalyst behind this particular initiative. I give them, the credit for conceptualizing the idea, discussing it with us, and partnering with us in ensuring that it is implemented. I'm very pleased that we were able to identify some Tobago groups that would be considered in determining the award. But I think more importantly than just who gets the award or the unit that gets the award, I think more important from our perspective is the whole idea of letting people understand the importance of mediation, the importance of collaboration, and the importance of us working together for peace at all levels, in peace in their homes, in the communities, in the island, the country, the region, and the world. And the whole idea is that somewhere down the road, that Tobago can become what we call a peace hub, where we have various initiatives, whether it is conferences, whether it is research, whatever necessary in order to make this world a more peaceful place. And finally, we are going to be, I just want to indicate that I made a commitment. We are going to be going into retreat early next month. Of course, as you know, the budget debate went longer than I anticipated because I did not factor in, and I should have, I did not factor in that period during which they do the line item by line item analysis, which of course cost us a week. So early next week we are hoping to go into retreat and to discuss the allocation and how we can deliver more effectively. We have already identified a number of projects, and I just want to indicate to you that we already started discussions with a couple of the project managing units so that we can get the best process to have delivery on such things like the Scarborough RC School, like the early childhood care centers, like the indoor complexes, the 2 indoor complexes which we promised. And we are going to initiate discussions with the Ministry of National Security with respect to the construction, and this has to happen, the construction of the police stations at Old Grange and Roxborough. I just received a recommendation from the Chief Fire Officer that we should work assiduously to have the old fire station demolished. As far as I'm concerned, demolition must be followed by construction. So that is something that I also expect us to be involved in. So within the next maybe 2 weeks, we should be in a position to identify our priority projects and be in a position to identify how they're going to be funded. And later in the month, we will of course make that information available to the public of Tobago.
When you look at social media, because a lot of information circulates via social media, you see people relating this incident to others that would have happened similarly in the past. Do you see a relation?
My feeling is that I don't think there is. But of course, I am more confident this time that the perpetrator will be brought to justice. And when that happens, the motive would be made known, and I think that would dissipate some of the concerns with respect to that. Because I think that is one of the challenges we have when perpetrators are not brought to justice, because of course it leads to speculation, and some of the speculation is justified because, but I am not convinced, and I am expecting that when the perpetrators are brought to justice, that particular speculation would not be as strong.
Senior Superintendent Tobago, Garth Nelson, he would have said the complexion of Tobago is changing. He said not that it is becoming crime-riddled, but we have to be more vigilant and all these things. But in the layman mind, Tobago changing, Tobago becoming crime-riddled. What do you have to say to the citizens or Tobagonians about what is happening in Tobago? Because, of course, yesterday's situation created an uproar.
Yeah, and I think that is understandable. When you have a crime as horrendous as this, and to a certain extent seemingly senseless as this, everybody becomes or feels a little bit more vulnerable. And as I said, it is only when the facts come out that some of these fears hopefully will be alleviated. The reality is, as everywhere else, the situation in Tobago has changed. I do not believe that the situation is one that is alarming, but the situation has changed. And even though we do not have a criminal environment, there are criminal elements in Tobago. And therefore we have to operate as if there are criminal elements in Tobago. And that is being realistic. And therefore, whether it is, as I indicated, whether it is the resident or the visitor, you have to exercise the relevant vigilance in the circumstances. But I'm always convinced, and this is something to which we must strive to ensure that we keep it like that the Tobago environment is not an environment in which the criminal element can flourish. Criminals who operate in Tobago have to operate in an environment where they do their dirty work and either hide out or slip away. I don't think there's any community or any village or in Tobago that encourage criminality. My concern, however, is that we don't talk enough. We don't provide enough information. And that is what I'm urging people to do. And that is why that whole idea of the community policing and that whole idea of a local policing authority that will have stronger ties with the community. It's very difficult, the way in which our society is structured, for anybody to do anything and somebody else didn't know. It's a matter now of reporting. And it is that level of collaboration that I think is our greatest asset in Tobago and our greatest hope that we'll be able to alleviate some of this trauma that all of us are experiencing at this point in time.
In your discussions with the police officers and so on, and police team in Tobago, has there been any updates on perhaps like the Keels murder and some of the other profile murders such as that?
Well, to be quite honest, the way in which these things happen, when you have these kind of conversations, you tend to focus on the immediate challenge. I will expect that sometime within the next week or so that I'll be able to have a sit down with the ACP where I can get an update on some of these cases, which I hope are not cold cases.
Some oriented policing. Do you expect having this murder, double murder, that happening again? It's around the same time. Persons are making theories. There's a serial killer in Tobago. Persons are panicking, as the case may be. But do you expect that there would be some tourism advisory coming out, and how will the Tobago House of Assembly will deal with that, if that does happen?
Well, the issue of a tourism advisory or any advisory is the prerogative of the particular country, and that is their right, because they have a right and a responsibility to do whatsoever they think is necessary to advise and to protect their citizens. What the Tobago House of Assembly and the people of Tobago have got to be able to do is to be able to demonstrate by the way in which they act, the systems they put in place, the seriousness of the investigation, the level of sensitivity to the plight of the visitors and so on, that this particular incident is not indicative of the environment. And therefore, if people understand that this is, in fact, almost an aberration, it is not the norm in the Tobago context, then even though there is some immediate reaction, the long-term negative impact would be alleviated. And therefore, this is why I am saying that when we're able to demonstrate about the advent of the tourism-oriented policing, when we're able to be able to advocate or to indicate that we are going to put the local policing units and so on, and if we can have an environment where the people of Tobago see themselves more involved in detection and prevention, I think we would be able to have an environment which is attractive. Because you look at what has happened over the past month, and it is troubling. But then when you looked at what happened over the previous 7-8 months, it was nothing to be alarmed about. And we got to now find out, and the police have got to help us to find out, is it that this is coincidental? Is it a trend? But we have to let the world know that we are on top of the situation. We will not be able to prevent every incident, but that it is not an environment in which incidents like these are encouraged, are facilitated, or likely to happen on a regular basis. I think that is the reality with which we got to face. But I'm accepting the fact that when something like this happens, you got to be realistic. There is going to be some negative fallout. How you treat with it and the signals you send and the level of not just confidence, but the level of sensitivity and intensity with which you treat with it, those are the kind of things that are going to determine whether your markets are going to see that things are manageable.
Thank you for staying with us for the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for the week ending 24th October 2015.